Good evening. Welcome to night 5 of Sun and Moon. Tonight we are going to practice Yin Yoga to release any tension that you might be holding on to from your day or from your week, to really just tune into what's happening internally, work that energy through and out of the body so that you can set up for a beautiful night of rest. We're going to get started in butterfly fish. So you'll need either 2 blocks or a bolster or a pillow or a few pillows to go into this first pose, but it's going to be going the long ways of your mat, whatever you use. So if it is a bolster, setting it up the long ways near the top of your mat. And if it is 2 blocks, you can do 1 block underneath your head on its medium or highest height. And then if it is, or the other block is going to go underneath your shoulder blades. And actually you have 2 options here. You could have it going this long way where it's going to go in between your shoulder blades, or you can have it going wide ways in which it's going to just support underneath your shoulder blades and your ribs. So for me, I'm choosing to grab my bolster and use that instead. Turn yourself around, make sure that the prop goes right up to your lower back, and then recline down over your prop, whatever you chose. From here, let your arms rest beside you, and then walk the soles of the feet together, let the knees go apart. Let the legs be heavy. If that creates too much tension and pulling in the inner thighs, use more pillows or your blocks and use them underneath your thighs for a little bit of support. Close your eyes whenever you get set up. It's okay to take the first few breaths to settle in and make sure that everything is supported the way it needs to be for you to soften and let go. Begin to deepen your breath. Notice how you feel at this point in your day. Notice what kind of thoughts or emotions you're experiencing without judgment. Just acknowledge that they are there. Yin Yoga is a wonderful practice to implement the yogic practice of cultivating the opposite. The Yoga Sutras say that when we experience uncomfortable, painful, negative, or just overall feelings and emotions that don't really serve the highest good for ourselves or for others, to cultivate the opposite emotion or the opposite thought. And so sometimes when we hold these poses for a little bit longer of time than we're used to, that discomfort will manifest in the mind and the body as tension. But we are in this practice of yin while being an agency. You get to make choices. You choose to be here. You choose how many props you use and how many you don't use. And so as you experience perhaps uncomfortable emotions or feelings, try to replace those with feelings that serve you, not necessarily of comfort, but of resilience, of your power to let things go, and to choose the path of ease and softness. Take another breath in through your nose here. Let it out with a sigh. Stay with your breath as we transition to the next pose. You're going to bring your hands underneath your thighs to help them close like a book. And then I want you to roll off of your prop to one side, reach behind you, grab onto whatever prop you used, and move it out of the way. And then roll back onto a flat back, constructive rest. And we're going to use the prop again in our next pose, supported bridge. So it could be the pillows, the bolster, or the blocks, whatever you have. Inhale, press into your feet, lift your hips. Exhale, as you pull the bolster underneath you, you're setting your lower back and your hips down onto that prop. Hands can rest wherever's comfortable to you. Some people like to have the hands rest over the belly. Other people like to let the arms rest down beside them. You choose what feels the most supportive to you. Feel the breath start to travel down into your low belly. Belly button expands on the inhales and relaxes back on the exhales. And for this supported bridge, you might keep the feet onto the floor, or you might extend your legs long for pontoon. And this is a deeper back bend. It gets a little bit more into the front of the hips, and it also creates a little bit more compression in the lower back. If that feels like pinching or pain, just bring the soles of your feet back to the mat. But as long as you're comfortable here, begin to soften into this pose. Let your breath carry you inward, where you just observe the natural changes that take place in your mind and your body while we're here for the next couple of minutes. Mm. Take another breath in through your nose. And let it out with another sigh. Slowly start to slide your feet back in if you had extended your legs. And let's all press into the feet to lift the hips off of the prop and then slide it out of the way and lower the hips down into constructive rest again. Notice how your back feels. Notice how you feel emotionally and mentally now. Our next pose is going to be a reclined twist. Start by drawing both of your knees into your body. And then I want you to roll all the way over onto your left side. Then open your arms out into a T shape. Let your right shoulder melt down towards the floor, towards your mat. Think about keeping your knees tucked in close and maybe let the feet slide a little bit further away from your bottom. Send your breath awareness into your ribs, your chest, and let this rhythm keep you anchored in the present moment. And remember to soften as much as you can while we're here. Bring more awareness to your breath now. On your next inhale, let that help your legs float back up through center. And then pause and center. Notice the way that you feel from one side to the next. Notice any differences. And then just like before, as we make our way back to the other side, you're going to roll over all the way to your right side. And keep the knees tucked in close, and then open your chest back towards the ceiling. Open your arms out into this T shape and soften into the twist on this side. Keeping the knees tucked in close, but letting the feet go away from you helps to bring this more so into the mid back, rather than just focusing on the lower back where the spinal column and the vertebrae are naturally a little bit more flexible. This will bring more of a stretch into those upper mid vertebrae, or it's a little bit harder to get a stretch. Take another breath in your twist. And then exhale, roll all the way over onto your right side again. Use your left hand in front of you, extend your left leg, press down, come up and make your way to a tabletop pose. From table, we're coming into swan pose. So you're going to slide your right knee behind your right wrist. Turn the right toes to point slightly over towards the left long edge of your mat. And then tuck the back toes and walk your back knee, your left knee, back until you feel even through the hips. And you can really let the hips be heavy here. If this is too much of a stretch, grab your bolster and slide it underneath your hips wide ways. And so this way the hips stay even. So you can do this also with blankets or pillows. But this way the hips stay even to one another. And then you can always stay up on the hands if this feels better to you. Or you can use blocks underneath your hands or your forearms. Or even stack them up underneath your chest or your head so that you don't have to do as much work in your arms and your upper body. So whatever you choose, begin to soften and let go. I love practicing yin in the evening because it is a great reminder that all of the doing of the day, all of the pushing and pulling, that's over now. Anything that was left undone can be handled tomorrow. And everything that is done cannot be changed. And so it's time to let it go. Tomorrow you'll have a clean slate and can start again. But right now you're refilling your cup. Start to deepen your breath. Notice if there's anywhere else in your body that would soften now. Take another breath in. Exhale, press into your arms, come up onto your hands. You can move your props out of the way. Lifting up your hips to slide any props out from underneath you. And then slide the right knee back. I like to take a brief downward dog to release this pose, but you could also just tuck the right toes and press back through the heel, or even sit the hips back to child's pose. But if you'd like to take downward dog with me, tuck your toes, send your hips up high and back. Get a stretch out through the legs, alternate the bend of the knees. And then let's all make our way back to table wherever you are. And we're going to do that same pose on the other side. Slide the left knee behind the left wrist. Point the left toes over towards the right long edge of your mat. Start to walk your right knee back. Try to find this sense of balance and evenness through the hips. You might be leaning more onto one hip than the other. Just try your best to keep them even to one another and let them be heavy. So again, if having them be heavy is a really intense stretch for you and it doesn't feel like you could hold it for the full length of time, grab your pillows or your props. I'm using a bolster underneath my hips, going wide ways so that it supports both hips. And then you can use blocks or pillows underneath your upper body. And once you get adjusted, start to melt into this pose. Let go of the doing. No need to force anything here. Meet yourself right where you're at and surrender into the pose. Take another breath in. Exhale, begin to release the pose. Lift your head up, prop yourself onto your hands, and this time you can go ahead and slide the right leg back to a downward dog or pressing back to the heel, but also we could just lean over to the left hip and swing that right leg around. Then you can move your props out of the way. I want to invite you to either sit up on your bolster, pillow, or blanket, whatever you had underneath you. That is welcome here. I'm going to go ahead and move it out of the way just because this next pose does feel better to me without it. But for some people, it is nicer to have a little lift under the hips. You're going to extend your legs long, and our last pose before Shavasana is caterpillar pose. It's just a straight-legged forward fold, and by straight-legged, I really do mean straight because in yin, rather than in vinyasa and hatha, we're not really trying to get as deep into the pose as we possibly can. We're really trying to release the use of our muscles to get into the fascia and the energetic body. So allow your legs to be straight, hip-width distance apart, and you're going to maybe frame the legs with some blocks, or you could also stack up some pillows or even stack up your bolster on top of some blocks here, and you're going to lay your body over those props and really melt yourself down towards your legs. So again, I'm staying pretty high up here. You don't need to push yourself super deep into this forward fold. Just let the weight of gravity bring you into the stretch. Soften through your legs. Feel all of the space you're creating between the vertebrae. Release the weight of your head. And I want you to take the transition out of this pose slower than you think that you need to. Use an inhale to begin to lift your head a little bit, and then find your hands onto maybe the props or onto your thighs, and use your strong arms to slowly help you come back up to upright. Notice how you feel. And then we're making our way into Shavasana, your final resting pose. So move the props out of the way. Turn yourself around. You can have your feet onto the floor and then use the hands behind your thighs to slowly lay down. And we're just going to take a few breaths here. Soften the weight of your body into your mat. Notice the effect that your practice has had on you. Feel gratitude for yourself for showing up here, taking out a little bit of time to take care of yourself and release tension. And tonight I will leave you right here so you can choose how long you stay in Shavasana, or if you start to make your way off of your mat and into the rest of your evening, maybe even right off to bed. Let's close our practice by saying Namaste.